Hi there, I'm Mountain Jace. This channel is not for those that dream of getting freakishly jacked, nor is it for those that equate being massive with a bubble gut and acne-riddled back with being fit. No, the sole aim is to help the average gym goer. That is to say, the 99% of us that train between 3 and 5 times a week in amongst juggling work and busy social lives to break free from past fitness mediocrity and get onto the path of truly reaching our own peak fitness potential. I want to empower these people to go from getting their current 10 to 20% of the available benefits of working out to constantly hitting more than 70%, the threshold at which the body is forced to build back better. To do so, the unpalatable truth is that one must first recognize why exactly the way you have been working out, perhaps over years and years, is so fundamentally flawed. Or, put another way, how exactly most people throw away great chunks of potential performance enhancements because they simply do not understand what it takes to truly train a muscle into the crucial debilitation zone. That is the zone in which sufficient muscle fibers have been micro-torn to guarantee that the body will be compelled to build back better if repeated regularly over time. It is vitally important to understand that if either your technique or your training strategy is so inherently inefficient that you never get anywhere near this range, and as I've already said, it's my regrettable assertion that almost everyone I see at gym barely hits the 20% mark, then there is absolutely no chance, given the fact that each muscle is probably only trained once or twice in any 7-day period, that the body will allocate precious resources to make you fitter and stronger. It just won't happen. As I mentioned in my last video, getting fit can't be achieved by staring at your phone for up to 95% of the total time you spend in gym each session. Regarding technique, I have uploaded an entire series called The Foundations of Fitness that comprehensively explain how and why people get lost in cheat training, by which I mean they allow a weight's force to either go directly down through their bones, as humans do every day when they stand straight upwards rather than squatting, or by seesawing their own body mass in opposition to an external smaller weight to make it move. I strongly encourage anyone who wants to succeed in gym to watch these videos over and over again until you yourself can see just how it is that I arrive at my regrettable claim that the vast majority of those that go to gym barely manage a return on their fitness investment of 20%, which is so far from the minimum 70% required so as to be zero week over week. Anyway, back to today's topic, which asks the question, what is the difference between training and competing? And why do most people succumb to the latter rather than the former, and hence never make any tangible progress up their mountain of peak fitness? Let me take the question of competing first. This is when the destination is the only thing that matters. That is to say, coming first in a race, hitting a golf ball into a hole, or even bench pressing the most weight. It doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you appear to comply with the rules of the sport in question. The aim is to get the body to find a physiological way to attain the greatest results with what it has available to it at that very moment. Whereas, I think you'll all agree, when you train, it's the journey of getting your muscles fitter and stronger that matters. So that sometime in the future, you will have the chance to use this enhanced power in the real world to, say, pursue a favorite hobby, help a friend move house, or run and catch a bus that normally you would have missed. Whatever the reason, when you train, it's all about taking your muscle deep into the debilitation zone, so that during the days ahead, your brain commands your body to build broken fibers back bigger and stronger than ever before. To do this, you have to engage with the weights you're training with, both in the positive and negative range of movement. You have to isolate a muscle and make sure no other part of your body is moving, and you have to make sure that the gaps between each set are less than 1.5 minutes long maximum. All the videos in this series so far have dealt with each of these issues in turn, highlighting the various cheap methods people deploy to give the impression that they are training, when in fact they are actually using the compete system. So, to illustrate just how damaging both to your joints and your fitness goals it is to work out as if you were competing, let me tell you about a trainer of all things at my gym. Though I'm sure he's a great guy, his cheat workout on the Olympic bar bench press looks as follows. He spends perhaps 50 minutes adding more and more weight to the bar, which means indisputably he's torn no muscle fibers, otherwise he'd be getting weaker, not stronger. See my video called Seek and Destroy to understand why when you break a muscle it becomes less, not more, efficient. During this period he only does a few repetitions each set, and certainly not enough to enter the debilitation zone. Each set takes about 4 seconds to complete. He then stands around for another 7 to 10 minutes, showing zero signs that he's burnt any oxygen in his blood. Again, proof, though he would never admit it, that no muscles have been activated into intense exertion. As his weights get progressively heavier, perhaps reaching a peak of 140 kilograms, he arches his back as much as he possibly can, in the very direction that all osteopaths warn you should never do. He does this so that the force of the weight is transferred away from his chest and diagonally across onto his shoulders and arms, massively increasing the risk of injury to his joints as it flows through these bottleneck stress points. At the top of the positive range, he locks out his arms and pauses, so that for the period just before, during, and just after, the weight force of the bar is being sent directly down through his bones and onto the bench, and most crucially, not onto his chest. So, in a set that takes barely a few seconds, a sizable proportion of this time is spent in a cheat rest state, to add to the further 500 odd seconds in between each set. He then all but totally releases any muscle engagement along the negative range by letting the bar fall under the control of gravity to then bounce it off his chest, and so avoid him pushing up for the first 20% of the positive range. Again, this is a supposed trainer of people who just want to get fitter, slimmer, and healthier. During his entire bench press workout, that he ends on his maximum weight, which takes about an hour, he never actually trains the pecs, but solely does what one would do if in a competition. Find as many ways as the body will allow to avoid tearing valuable chest fibers. Worse still, because so much of the weight he is using is being directed away from parts of the body that require oxygen to work, he is gaining no cardiovascular benefit from his time in the gym. At the end of all this, he labours under the misplaced sense of achievement that he can bench press 140 kilograms for one rep. If this was indeed a competition, then that might be a goodish weight. But in terms of actually getting fitter and stronger in the future, that is to say, garnering real performance gains that aren't predicated on knowing precisely how to cheat every element of the bench press move, he's done absolutely nothing other than store up injury-related issues in his joints for later. And because he's fat and out of shape, even though this is his chosen profession, health issues as he gets older. So this is an example, perhaps an extreme one, of what you should definitely never do when you're in training mode. That is to say, intent on making a muscle work in its entirety, whilst also building up the lung and heart capacity to deliver you to your fitness nirvana. As I have championed repeatedly on this channel, do the exact opposite. Stay engaged with the weight at all times, both in the positive and negative ranges. Move the bar at a constant speed throughout, taking 3 times as long to complete the negative section as the positive. Never use other parts of your body to get the job done. Never throw away the compounding benefits of starting your next set whilst you're still breathing heavily and hurting from the last. See my episode called Seek and Destroy of my Foundations of Fitness series to learn how to make the body build functional 3D muscles where layer after layer of fibers are trained into the vital debilitation zone. And never do more than 3 sets per exercise in which you must lower the weight after each set. See my series where I target a specific muscle and then train it into the debilitation zone using the core tenets of my Foundations of Fitness. For example, training killer quads, calves, or press-ups. Finally, the question I'm sure you're all desperate to know the answer to: have I ever spoken to this trainer about just how useless his technique is? Well, yes, I once explained all the above and then challenged him to try and do just 3 bench press reps properly at 60 kilograms rather than what he had on the bar, which was around 120 kilograms at the time, using purely his chest, i.e. no arching his back or leg thrusting, no bouncing the bar off his chest, and no pausing at lockout at the top, etc. And he just wouldn't do it. He was too frightened to openly acknowledge what he already knew deep down, that he's not in fact very strong, regardless of the impressive looking weights he bangs loudly onto the bar, and that sadly he's been lying to himself all these years. Anybody who was really strong would have immediately agreed to my offer in order to prove me wrong. It's a shame for him, but terrible for his clients, because they are being taught to do everything but actually get fit, leaving aside the injuries that will almost certainly follow when you use your training sessions as if you were competing. Anyway, now go do the right thing and make me proud and you strong.